Today I'll be talking to you guys about languages and how they are the keys to the world. In the 2nd century BC, the young king Ptolemy V ascended the throne as the king of Egypt at the age of 13. According to a historical resource from the BBC, the Council of Priests at the time made a royal decree announcing his coronation. They decided to do this as an inscription on a slab of stone. Because King Ptolemy's family was originally Greek, they decided to have the inscription in 3 different languages: Ancient Greek, Ancient Egyptian, and hieroglyphics. For a time, the stone was lost, and by the end of the 8400s, understanding hieroglyphics as a language and with it the history of Egyptian culture was lost and a mystery to people. That is, until 1799, when French soldiers from Napoleon Bonaparte's army discovered the stone in the small town of Rosetta. It wasn't until the 1820s when a French scholar was able to fully translate the slab of stone that people were able to understand hieroglyphics as a language, and with it, the life and culture of the ancient Egyptians, something that no one had ever accomplished before. The Rosetta Stone is one of the greatest examples for the major role that languages can play in impacting our entire world. Today, I will be discussing the role that languages play in multiple schemes. First, we will discuss the history of languages and how they have spread across the world through the emergence of trade and colonization. Second, we will talk about how different cultures have evolved their artwork and from languages based on some of the restrictions in their societies. And third, we will talk about how learning languages and the preservation of languages have evolved with the advancement of technology. In the end, I hope you will be more well informed about the impact that languages have had on the history of the world, art, and how technology has advanced language while it has advanced itself. We have to start off with the understanding that we cannot say with absolute certainty that there is a single origin for any language. As Matsovic mentions in his research paper, the starting point of the historical development of the world's languages is still unknown. However, progress in our understanding of linguistic prehistory of the world is made possible through comparative linguistics, archaeology, and population genetics. There are many variations for historical evidence on how languages were spread throughout the world. The first one we'll discuss is lingua franca. In the Middle Ages, the term lingua franca was adopted as a pidgin for the Mediterranean region so that merchants and sailors could communicate with one another to overcome the language barriers that were present at the time. One of the things about lingua franca, however, is that it was used as an oral communication, and it was used for illicit economic activities such as piracy and slave trade, so there's little to no written word about the actual content of the lingua franca. As Borsch mentions in their research paper, the modern term of a lingua franca is known as any additional language used habitually to facilitate communication between people with different first languages. Another way that languages were spread across the world historically was through the occupation of foreign lands. What are now known today as Romance languages first evolved from the Vulgar Latin that was spoken during the Roman Empire. The regions that were occupied by the Roman Empire, including the Iberian Peninsula, Italian Peninsula, and the Balkans, today speak the Roman languages of French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and Romanian, which all stem from the root of Latin. Later on in history, imperialism played an important role in the spread of languages as well. Today, French and English are spoken in many countries in Africa and Central America, which were under imperial rule. Next, we'll discuss the way that art was impacted by languages for certain cultures and religions. Arabic calligraphy was used as a form of communication and a way for Muslims to document their holy book, the Quran. Although it was used originally as a form of communication, it evolved to actually define Arabic artwork and architecture. One of the biggest differences between the faith of Islam and the way that they view artwork is that images of Allah and the prophets are not allowed to be produced for fear of idolatry, which is different from, for example, the Christian faith, which actually there are many famous images of Jesus Christ, God, and the Virgin Mary in famous paintings such as the Last Supper and the Last Judgment found on the walls of the Sistine Chapel. As Al-Mansim explains in his analysis, Arabic calligraphy is still today one of the most widely acknowledged arts and continues to develop. Arabic calligraphers from around the world continue to develop their own styles of artwork based on existing scripts, contributing to the art just as much as traditional scripts have done. Rather than look at their religious restriction as a hindrance, Muslims evolved to actually embrace the creative freedom that they were allowed. Instead of having to abide by predictable, iconic subject matter, artists used creativity and imagination in the subject matters they chose. They transformed the words and the phrases into these varied images, and language actually became not only a form of communication, but a visual identity of an entire culture. Finally, we'll discuss the way that technology and society modernized and advanced, and with it, so did language. Facebook, Google Translate, Rosetta Stone are all outlets for ways people learn languages and preserve languages. One of the ways that preservation of languages is possible is actually by saving endangered languages. In an article from CNN in 2016, it describes how Facebook has added translation options for endangered languages. The director of internationalization and localization at Facebook stated that this was the case because the mission for Facebook is to enable people to share and make the world more open and connected. Language is such a vital part of connectivity. Another way that languages are being preserved is through Google Translate's project, the Endangered Languages Project. In this interactive online website, there are maps that actually show the languages that are at risk and also up for extinction, and they will actually show resources for how to learn the languages, as well as how to revitalize and advocate for the preservation of languages. When the Council of Priests made the decision to put the languages in 3 different scripts on the inscription of the Rosetta Stone, they had no idea that this would be the key to uncovering a history of an entire civilization. They had no way of knowing that this piece of stone would become a well-renowned artifact. They had no way of knowing that it would serve as a symbol for the connectivity of languages across the world. Today, we've spoken about the many roles that languages have played in the scheme of the entire globe. Historically, lingua francas have acted as Rosetta Stones for merchants and sailors. Muslims transformed the Arabic language into works of art, and Facebook and Google are helping to show the world the network of humans through language. Time and space have shown that languages have had an impact and been extremely impacted by history, art, and technology.